Welcome to the Paranormal Perspective, episode 4. Thank you everybody for joining me today, and thank you for all the positive feedback you've been giving me over the past 3 episodes. It's been great to hear things that you guys have been experiencing, and I can't wait to share more of your stories. Things have been going really well, and I love hearing from you. If you have any personal paranormal experiences that you've experienced that you want to share, definitely email me at info@paranormalperspective.com. And again, you can find me on Facebook. That's VJ Prasad. It's paranormalperspective.com. And definitely tune into and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Paranormal Perspective. And we can keep you updated on all the new stories that we get in. So once again, we record these every week, and we share these different experiences that people have been going through all over, and I can actually say all over the world now, because, well, at least in North America, because I've been getting emails from the States as well as Canada, which is really cool. Today's kind of a big episode because I have an email here. Now, this is coming from Bishop James Long. Now, many of you who watch paranormal TV shows may have heard of Bishop James Long. He definitely most notably was the Return to Bobby Mackey's episode of Ghost Adventures. He was on there as well as a number of paranormal shows. He's an exorcist with the Catholic Church and an instructor in demonology as well. So Bishop Long has written me one of his experiences that he is also going to be sharing in our upcoming paranormal magazine also. So he has sent this in to me that I can actually share with you right now, which is really cool. So going right into the episode that I received from Bishop Long. I had read the stories about the Mothman and was rather skeptical of such a creature. Or at least I was until a summer evening in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. There's a cemetery that I located in Elizabethtown, and many years ago, a paranormal team that I eventually befriended coined this cemetery the Gates of Hell. I must admit the name fits quite well considering the activity that occurs there. Casey Cemetery is an old abandoned cemetery, and there is one way in and one way out. To get to the cemetery, you have to drive down a single-lane road for about 3 to 4 miles. There are woods on both sides of the road, and many people say that while on this road, you can feel the presence of paranormal activity within the graveyard from miles away. Truth be told, I think you can. My first experience with the cemetery was one that I will never forget. Prior to my visit, a paranormal investigator who I respected a great deal told me a story that grabbed my attention and made me question the type of activity that occurs in this particular graveyard. He stated that while driving to the cemetery late at night, he and his companions saw a little girl pushing a little boy in a wheelchair. Keep in mind that this was about 11 p.m. on a very rough road when they saw this little girl in front of their vehicle. The girl moved to the side, and the investigator stopped near the girl to ask if she knew where the cemetery was located. The girl said nothing, but she pointed ahead and continued pushing the little boy in the wheelchair. At the time, the road was not paved and it was rather dirty and rocky. My friend said that the girl must have been around 12 years old or so. My friend also asked the girl if she needed help, but the girl ignored the question. The investigator drove on his way, but was deeply concerned about the kids, so he found a small section of road where he could turn around and go back to see if he could help them. When he approached the area where the kids were, they had completely vanished. Nothing. However, he did see the tracks of the wheelchair and knew that he had not imagined this apparition. This was his first experience. I was asked by family members of those who were buried at the cemetery if I could go there and pray and offer a blessing. The families were rather concerned because there were many reports of vandalism and satanic rituals being performed there. People have reported being attacked and severely scratched at this particular cemetery, and so I agreed to offer a blessing. The single-lane road literally dead ends at the front part of the cemetery. It is not a large cemetery, but it certainly grabbed my attention when I arrived. There was no question in my mind that evil activity had occurred there, and I could feel the sensation as soon as I left my car. It was rather oppressive. We walked to the back of the cemetery, and there was a large tree where the satanic rituals had been performed. We found animal bones and satanic carvings near the tree. I was not alone during this time. I had brought 3 other individuals. The first was the investigator who had the experiences with the children. Father David Price was the second, and the other person was a very strong skeptic. His name was Marco, and he simply refused to believe in paranormal activity. After I began to pray, the wind picked up and the trees began to sway violently back and forth. Keep in mind that there were no clouds in the sky and it was a rather calm evening until the prayers began. The large tree where we were located was surrounded by other trees. We began to hear sounds as if things were running around us. We could clearly see the outline of shapes and shadows. They were moving around so quickly, and we all felt that we were being surrounded. Even as I type this, I get chills thinking of the experience. The shadows kept running around us, and the trees were making cracking noises because of the wind. These shapes were not leaves being tossed around. Rather, we could clearly see the silhouette of physical shapes. We were not alone. Marco, the skeptic, began stating that he felt sick and needed to leave the cemetery immediately. He stated that it was time to go. My paranormal investigator friend also stated that he was becoming incredibly uncomfortable and wanted to leave as well. We began walking back to the front of the cemetery, and everyone kept saying that we were being followed. We all felt it, and we were all seeing the shadows all around us. Finally, we arrived at the front of the cemetery, and as soon as we walked out, the wind stopped and the shadows were gone. We all began to discuss what we experienced, but Marco stopped speaking. He turned around and shined his flashlight on a tree that was at the front of the cemetery, and then we all saw him drop his light. He ran to the car and screamed for everyone to leave immediately. We turned around to look at what he was seeing, and I will never ever forget the image. The moon was shining through this tree, so when we looked at this tree, we could see the light from the moon shining through it. However, without a question and without a doubt, we all saw a huge winged figure, and I would estimate it to be about 8 feet tall within this tree. Its eyes were red, and it was looking down directly at us. Every single one of us saw this creature, and every single one of us ran to our cars without hesitation. My paranormal investigator friend got in his car first, and within seconds he was literally gone. Even to this day, I cannot tell you what it was that I saw. I know that we all saw something, and I know that it was something that I have never seen before. If I were to describe what we felt while looking at this creature, it would be that of being warned not to proceed any further. We all felt that this presence was a very firm warning. That is the best way to describe it. I have included a picture of what this winged creature looked like. Was it the Mothman? I don't know, but I do know that it was something that I have never seen before, and honestly, it's something I have no intention of seeing again. That's the end of the email from Bishop Long. Yeah, that's fairly intense, I would have to say. There's no getting around the fact that if that was me going through something like that, I would definitely be jumping out of my shoes. First of all, right off the bat, if you've ever been into a situation where you enter a premises where there is any type of paranormal activity, any type of supernatural feel, there's an energy. You can tell the difference between something that's a little more positive compared to something that's more negative. So when he's saying that as soon as he got out of his car and he felt an oppressive feel, right off the bat, that's a red flag right there. Because an oppressive feeling of energy around any situation, that's a warning right off the bat. Because that is, when something dark is involved, you feel it in your depths of your bones. I'm telling you right now, that is not something you ever enjoy feeling. Then, even after feeling this right off the bat, they still proceeded. Like, that takes guts. Because it's, again, if you've ever felt that, that's not an easy thing to just brush off. Because that can be very intensive. Then when they get in there and beginning with prayers, and then all of a sudden, more activity happens. Wind kicks up and you start seeing figures and shapes. In general, now I would probably say 90% of the time, even more so, that if you're starting to do a religious invocation and then something like that happens where things start tossing around and shapes start acting more energetically, in other words, religious provocation, gets things to move, I would look at that as yet another red flag, because human entities don't generally act that way. Religious provocation doesn't bother people, but it definitely bothers darker entities. So when that starts kicking them up into a hissy, like I said, that's another red flag that makes you want to be a little bit cautious of what you might be stepping into. And just seeing entities overall that are starting to make you feel like they're surrounding you. I mean, if they're surrounding you, that means that they are actively thinking and moving. They're not just some repeated video type apparition that's been doing the same thing on a repeat basis like a normal haunting, which lots of them are, but this is something that's thinking and moving and acting. So you need to be really careful when in a situation like that if you're ever in there. But again, he's in this situation which is pretty heavy and still having the guts to carry on. I mean, you can definitely tell this man knows what he's doing, because that's takes guts to be able to step into that and keep on pushing through. But I can absolutely understand that towards that end, he's leaving, and then all of a sudden he looks up and sees this 8-foot winged creature with glowing red eyes staring directly down at you from up in a tree that you're right beside. It ain't no wonder everybody took off like a bat out of hell on that one, because that would be absolutely terrifying. You're already shaken up from the wind and the noise and the cracking, and then seeing shadows and figures, entities swirling around you and moving, clear definitive shapes, and then you have this huge winged figure glaring at you just before you're ready to take off. That could make the average man probably crap his pants a little bit. At least 1 to 2 drops of pee is going to come out somewhere. Just saying. You may not be the same. Some people take that better than others, but I'm just saying it's quite a big potential. If I was to put in my 2 cents on that, I mean, many of you may have heard about the Mothman stories. So the Point Pleasant situation with the bridge collapse and large amounts of deaths in that. The winged red-eyed creature. Many of you may have even heard of the Mothman Prophecies movie with Richard Gere. Now, just to clarify that one, the story of the Mothman Prophecies, it says based on a true story because it was a conglomerate of stories that multiple people have encountered. So again, that's based on witness accounts. But the way they did that movie was that they put Richard Gere at the center of all of these stories. So it's not that they never actually happened that one person went through all of this. It's that multiple people did. But in that movie, they made it as though it was all one person situation, that person being Richard Gere. But again, that is a conglomerate of different stories from different people that they put together to make this film. That's how that one worked. Now, again, going into the fact that here we have a situation of dark, shadowy figures, a creepy old graveyard, religious provocation. Was it the Mothman? It very well could be. The details that Bishop Long saw could fit that description very easily. But again, the thing that kind of catches me on that, I mean, religious incantation, then provoking spirits, and then you see this big winged creature with deep glowing red eyes. Well, I mean, that's, to me, could also be something a little freakier than that. I mean, you could have seen the apparition of a true demonic entity manifesting itself right in front of your face. What's the real difference between the Mothman and a demon? I don't really know. I mean, nobody ever probably will unless that was ever actually caught. Truthfully, you will never really know. But maybe they're one and the same, but maybe this is something totally different. But either way, equally as terrifying. That's kind of the crap thing. You're talking about being out of the frying pan into the fire, because it might be the Mothman or it could be this large winged demon. Great. That sounds awesome. No wonder you guys had to take off from that, because I don't see any normal man being able to stand and facing something like that with a smile on their face. There ain't no way. So even with ages of experience, that would be a hard one to take when you're facing something that dark and malevolent. And again, remembering, they walked into this place and they felt the feeling of oppression. There wasn't no positive feelings going through this, so this was something scary right off the bat they were going into. That was just the icing on the cake, was seeing this little massive figure glaring at them and essentially giving them that feeling of get out. And luckily they did, because, I mean, you definitely don't want to be putting yourself or your team into an unsafe situation, so it's good that they did, because they felt it, they seen it, they heard it, everything basically said get out, and they did. To anyone out there who's a paranormal investigator, definitely words to live by, that if this situation seems unsafe, if it seems a little too dangerous, I know there's teams out there who are like, oh, we're going to challenge that, we're going to take it to the extreme. If you have the experience behind you that you're comfortable doing so, fine. But remember, there is caution to be paid attention to with that. But generally, it's probably best not to do so at all, because better safe than sorry. if you ever put yourself in a situation like that and then you get a potential attachment of something dark and malevolent that has to come home with you, you probably don't want to ever deal with that. I'm pretty sure if I ever went out with my team and then got put into a situation of attachment, my wife would probably throw me out on the street. I can't blame her. So yes, if ever you're in that situation, just leave. Be safe. Now again, looking at the fact this is Bishop James Long, a man with tons of experience, a trained, skilled exorcist who saw that, okay, it was time to get out, and so he did so. So try not to take those chances. Protect yourself at all times, especially in a field like this. Anyone who's just getting into the field, heed those words. Be safe overall, because that is most important. Now, again, my team that I work with here, I'm part of a team called CAPI here in Calgary, so anybody who ever wants to potentially have an investigation on something they might think is happening in the Calgary or Southern Alberta area, definitely contact us. That's www.capi7.ca. So I mean, here we have that whole demonic potential that they have faced. I can only wonder. I haven't actually asked him, because this is I'm just reading this email now from him going into what they experienced, but I didn't actually ask him yet. I'm going to now, though. If they went back, I really want to know what else they could have seen or experienced through that, because that's pretty heavy detail that we got there from a very trusting, true, respected source. I'm very curious as to if they went back, what they might have seen afterwards, because it sounds like this isn't just a one-shot deal, that this place is extremely active. So I think I'm going to have to find that out myself, just because I want to know what went on and if they have any more detail, because that's kind of terrifyingly exciting. If anybody else has any information, thoughts on this, definitely email me at info@paranormalperspective.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your personal experiences. Again, you can find me on Facebook. That's Vijay Prasad as Paranormal Perspective. And again, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I release one of these every week, roughly. And I can't wait to hear you guys' stories and experiences that you've experienced, or if you have any thoughts overall. Can't wait to hear from you, and thanks again for joining me tonight. We will talk to you all later for episode 5 of the Paranormal Perspective. Take care, guys.